Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. I'm talking to Natalie from Power Thoughts. Hi, Nat.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, and yourself, my darling?
I'm good, thank you. So, I know you very well. If people don't know you, tell them more about who you are and what you do and what you're all about.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, as you said, I'm Natalie from Power Thoughts. And Power Thoughts is a business that I set up about 1.5 years ago, specifically designed to help children tap into the power of their thoughts. So I run workshops within schools, helping children build their emotional resilience, their confidence, paying attention to those self-doubts that might crop up, and obviously looking at ways to turn this into a positive mindset for them, help them overcome those doubts, and then also looking at elements of mindfulness and overall just building their emotional and well-being and emotional resilience.
Amazing. And how did you find this gap in the market? Was it something that you found or did it come to you?
I think it kind of was a bit of a blend of both, I used to be a teacher. So as a former teacher, I worked in the primary sector for over 12 years. However, I always kind of felt that there was this underlying need inside of me, that there was something else that I should really be doing. I wasn't that passionate about, the school system and all of the things that, we're expected to do as teachers. And I also had a real passion for personal development and psychology, because I had a background in psychology from my days as a student. And when I was introduced to coaching, I thought, this sort of ticked the boxes, because it kind of filled it kind of fell under the umbrella of psychology, but coaching was also around helping people, empowering people to move forward and achieving their goals. And initially, I actually set up a business helping women make career changes, because in that time of my life, I was making a career change from teaching into setting up my coaching business. However, this was also, the coaching business initially was taking place in the evening, and I was still working full-time as a teacher. And it actually came across quite ironically, because as a teacher at the school I was based, we had to teach an after-school club. Right. And I kind of managed to get away with it for a couple of terms, but the one term I was pinned down and I really had to do an after-school club. So I thought, well, why don't I just teach the children mindfulness with, I'll be honest, the intention of giving them some colouring in to do whilst I mark books. Yeah. But when I actually found
in the corner.
Yeah, I know, because there was just too much to do. And but I actually found myself starting to teach the children the tools and the concepts that I was working with in the evening with my adults around self-doubts and limiting beliefs, but not obviously calling it that, breaking it down into to child speak. And I actually found myself absolutely loving it. And that was obviously added onto the fact that I had some parents reach out to me saying, I don't know what you're doing with Tom in the club, but he's absolutely loving it. He's coming out of his shell. I had other parents come to me saying, their children, I've helped them manage their worries. And that really was the first point for me where I thought, I'm onto something here, because nowhere in the curriculum do we as teachers have the opportunity to go so deep into emotional well-being and, maybe study our thoughts in a bit more detail and really look at what's going on and why we hold ourselves back. Yes. And it's really from there that I started to think maybe I could develop a program or a service where I go into schools and I work with children one-to-one, just educating them a bit about their thoughts, because we don't ever really get taught about our thoughts and what we think. We just kind of take for granted and believe everything that kind of pops into our mind.
And I was always told that school was going to be the best years of your life, and I really didn't find that to be the case. I was academic and creative and all those sort of things at school, as in I could tick the boxes, but I found it really hard going to the same place every day. And, if you were in a class with people that you weren't necessarily friends with, or, the pressure of exams. And I would have loved tools like this as well, because I guess I had that theatrical, not like being a drama queen, but that sort of, doing, maybe I was, out of school activities. I sort of didn't really feel like I found my place at school. And I know this, that a lot of people don't, as adults or children that I meet. And so these tools are so valuable in sort of just getting through and surviving the day-to-day life.
Absolutely. And I think, I think, when I was looking at obviously developing a more formal program and seeing if there was a need for this, the surveys and questionnaires that I did at the school that I was based in, I did it, it covered around, about 120 children from year 3 up to year 6, because I was based in a primary school. And a large portion of these children, a majority of the children would say, I feel as if I'm the only person in the class who doesn't understand, or I feel that I'm the only one that doesn't get it, or I feel that I'm not part of the group and there's something wrong with me. And ultimately, that thing that I think a lot of us adults will struggle with, where we've got those insecurities of I'm not good enough. And that was really shocking for me to, or eye-opening, I think might be a better terminology, around recognizing that those sort of things are prevalent from, when we're 6, 7, and 8 already, which just made it, me even more serious about the fact that, these sort of things need to be introduced at a much earlier age, when we're able to help children develop a more positive attitude and develop more resourceful habits.
Absolutely. And I remember having one teacher that was really scary, and even to put your hand up seemed like a huge moment, even though she would be shouting, everybody who's going to put their hand up. And you realise those sorts of things, even it's such a small thing such as putting your hand up, but after a while, if you haven't put your hand up for a bit, suddenly it becomes harder and harder, and you start to doubt yourself or lose that confidence. So I know you recently were on the TV, and they were sort of talking about what you do as life coaching for children, which is not what you do in the sense of life coaching. But how did you, I guess, find your niche, find your brand, and find your ethics and values that were really going to make sense to your customer?
Yeah, how did I find that? I think a lot of soul searching, and it really is funny, because I think I went back to what I knew well. Initially, when I was looking to leave teaching, a lot of people said to me, "Why don't you stay within the educational sector and stay with what you know?" And I always remember felt like kicking and screaming against and thinking, all I want to do is leave teaching, because I was so, depressed and disillusioned with where teaching was, and I just lost my complete passion for it. But I must say, honestly, looking back now and how the dots have joined in finding that, and then recognizing that I've tapped into the market that I know really well, because I'm very good at breaking things down and concepts down and making things fun for children to understand. So I think really paying attention to what I do well and also where my strengths are. I naturally sort of came back to that again. But it did take some time to get to that point. I must be honest with you. And I did have to fall flat on my face a few times to recognize that actually I need to, grow in the area that I already know well. And I think I blended the two aspects of my love for teaching, but then also blending it with the passion in the subjects that I enjoy teaching, the material that I enjoy teaching, and finding those things that work. And like I said, initially I wanted to set up and work with women in corporate, and I had this whole different idea of what it was going to look like. And what I do now is completely different. I'm still, stuck in classrooms with little chairs, but it's in a completely different capacity. But I'm Yeah, absolutely. But it is really paying attention to what was important to me, but also focusing on what I'm naturally good at, and finding those two things and building on those strengths. And I think as well, you asked something about the values, and I think again, really being clear on what my values are and what drives me, because I think sometimes we can become a bit disillusioned with that, and think we want something in a certain way. Like, for example, my initial stint at, confident coaching for women in the corporate sector or something like that, to me, deep down, it just didn't feel aligned with who Natalie was or is. And then coming back to obviously being just more in flow with what I'm doing right now. But it did take some time. I think it took over, at least about a 3-year little round the way journey.
They take time, don't they? And I feel like sometimes it can be that brave step to actually step into what it is you're really supposed to be doing. And sometimes that means that you have to face some things that you weren't expecting, or close some certain doors that are not really on the path that you want to be or need to be on. And it can be quite scary. So I guess what have been the most surprising things along your journey, as it were?
Oh, yeah. I think, I can so relate to that, taking that scary step. Initially, the scary step was moving from from full-time teaching to part-time teaching. And it was about a year ago. And I remember I was getting married that August as well, so the end of the summer holidays. And I'll never forget, I sat here in the sofa in the living room crying to my fiancé, soon-to-be husband then. I don't think he knew what he was in for. Saying, I feel like I've fallen off a cliff and I'm falling. And he turned around and he said to me, Natalie, you've jumped long ago and you better start flying.
Wow.
He's so right. Because I'd handed my notice.
People know us so well that you're just like, when they say it, there's that sting to what they're saying, but part of me is like, all right, I know, okay.
Absolutely. And he was so right, because by then I'd given my notice in 3 months before, and and he was right. And I think the surprising thing there is those little steps do pay off. Those small, consistent steps do pay off. I think the first 3 months I had no clue what I was doing. I was coming and going, juggling, part-time teaching role, juggling Power Thoughts part-time. But, I kept sending out the emails. I kept talking to people. So I think the surprise there was that 3 months later, I got my first official should we say, stint within a primary school, running a program for 12 weeks. And I think, another surprise along the way is be prepared to change, because initially I was so fixed on that I'm only going to be running 12-week programs in schools. Continuity is vitally important. But actually, I've completely changed my business model, 12 months down the line, in the fact that now I'm only doing half-day workshops at schools on particular themes. And actually, I'm enjoying that so much more than going into the same school, once every week, I suppose, just because I quite enjoy the flexibility and I enjoy variety, and I like the fact that my weeks can be different. Yes. But I've still got that impact. One thing as well is, I think we were talking just before this call, that there's always those new little opportunities and nuggets that come in just when you think nothing is happening, just when you think nobody is listening to you, and you think, I might as well just pull the plug, or nothing's coming from the work. People are watching. People are talking about you. People are noticing what you're doing, and for me, being a complete, I think, a recovering control freak, as I like to call it.
Amazing.
And somebody that has to know what's happening 5 steps ahead of the time, and getting really anxious, really feeling a sense of, I'm not 100% there, and I don't know if I ever will be, but definitely feeling more in flow with recognizing that these things, if you put the consistent action in, the small steps every day, even if it's just 1 step a day, it will get noticed and it will get recognized, and the good will come from that. And I think that that's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
And one thing I've realized is that sometimes because as entrepreneurs and business owners and self-employed people, that we come up with an idea, we make a decision, and we take action on it really quickly. And some people who are maybe the decision makers, the people who say yes, perhaps their pace is not the same as ours. So we want to be in, Red Magazine tomorrow, but actually the way that the editor works, their timetable and their schedule is much different to that. And so rather than panicking that it's not happening and she hasn't replied to my email or whatever it might be, is just sit with it and think, I've done everything that I have, that I can, and it will come back as and when it's ready. And we were just talking on the call earlier, I've had that opportunity today that I was watching one lady and wanting to work with her, and she was actually thinking the same about me, but she was having some life situations that was sort of delaying her day-to-day activities, such as replying to emails and doing that sort of thing. We've now found a place and we've met in the middle, and it's going to work out. So patience, it's so hard, but if you can do it, it does always work out in the end.
Absolutely. I can't remember, it was a while ago, probably it was last year sometime, I was listening to a podcast, and I cannot remember who it was, but he said, it could have been Les Brown. He said that you basically, the opportunities take about 9 months. So when you related it to planting a seed and waiting 9 months, he's still using analogy 9 months. And it was funny because when he said that, I went back and kind of looked at some of the actions and the things that I did, and it was roughly, I'm not saying I don't know if 9 is a magic number, but it was roughly about 7 to 9 months where I sometimes had the initial conversation with somebody, and then what I wanted from that conversation sometimes would come to fruition 7 to 9 months later, like actually being in school and running the program or whatever it might be. And I just think, I often think, when I do find myself getting impatient, I always strategy of the seed and watering the seed but not watching it grow. Yes. Just trust that it will grow, and go off and plant a few other seeds and then come back to the one that's grown.
And I wanted to ask you a bit more about that, of how you've moved your business on so quickly, I guess, and what are the things that really help you day to day to have that acceleration in your business?
Well, for me, I think I decided to invest in working with a mentor or a coach. So to me, I found that really invaluable because as a mutual friend of ours, Lucy Sheridan, her work resonated with me. And at that time when I approached her, she had something called a brand mentoring package that sort of ticked all the boxes around what I had, the thoughts that I had, because I had this idea, I wanted to go and work with children in schools around coaching tools and mindfulness tools. But that was all I had, and I needed some help in packaging it. We had a good synergy. So for me, that was really important, investing that money. And I think sometimes, it can be quite scary to think, I've got to invest a large portion of money. But that's definitely helped me along the way. I think other things as well is remembering, like I said, I've touched on it before, are consistent actions and consistent steps. The being clear on, for me, that I wanted to get into schools. I had certain schools that I had my eye on, and initially tapping just into the people that I knew, head teachers that I knew, deputy head teachers that I knew, and working with that. I mean, sometimes, I'll be honest, they weren't quite in the ideal location, because the one school that I'm based in at still is about an hour and a bit away from me, but it's the starting point. And I mean, from there, I've actually had a lot of other work pop up through the school that I was based at. But being really clear on, I think, one or two things that you want to achieve. In my case, with schools and clients, I wanted, and taking the daily steps, whether it is doing the emails or even, exposure and talking about the work that I do. And initially, I remember those first 3 months that it was really quiet. I was on social media every week, doing videos every week around the work that I was doing. So telling people about what I was doing, and I mean, I absolutely loathe the term networking, but yes, going to some of those events that felt a little bit more aligned with who I was, not just let's swap a business card. And in that way, and also looking just to make connections with people, because that's the other thing I found is, because what I found mostly is connecting with people, but then them talking about me to somebody else, rather than, right, I've got to go to this event and meet X amount of people and, look to get a client or two from them, rather just kind of shifting that perspective. I think being a bit softer around that. And definitely trying just to do, because, motivation, and we spoke about this just before the call, like motivation's not there all the time. And I think really relishing the days where you are in flow, but then days when you're not, just trying to do one thing that can move it forward, whether it is just sending that one email or making that one phone call or putting that one piece of content out. Yeah. Because those things really do work. It's the little things I've noticed that have the biggest impact, actually.
Absolutely. And one thing that you touched on, and it just was so clear to me, is just saying your idea out loud. And just, I think sometimes we can, if we're working by ourselves, we can work on our business, making everything look lovely, or, scheduling or sales funnels or whatever it might be. But actually talking to people and saying what it is, in having those conversations, those things can start to cook, so people are talking on your behalf. And I think, I remember from when I first started my coaching practice, I was so frightened, naively and stupidly, of sharing my ideas, because I was terrified that somebody was going to steal them. And it's like, nobody's going to steal it, because again, there's so much space for lots of different life coaches, but also nobody's looking at what you're doing that clearly. And obviously, and sometimes people are not going to necessarily do the work that you do or have your kind of flavour. So I know that with my own business, I should have spoken about it way earlier than I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I can so resonate with you about thinking that somebody's going to steal my idea or take my idea. But one thing I did really start to learn in these last few months, especially, is that, so what? Even if they do, they won't deliver it the way I deliver it. Yeah. And that's a mantra that I've often come back to. So what? Well, if they do, then, they do, but they're not going to deliver it in the way and in the style with my personality. In that way, and at the end of the day, I think in the space that we're in with coaching, there are very many similar tools, and it's just how we interpret them and how we use them. I can absolutely resonate with that as well.
For sure. And so when your motivation does waver, as inevitably it does for all of us, how do you get back on track? What are the practical or impractical tools that you come back to?
I think first off, initially I'd be quite hard on myself, and that's something that I'm still, working on, and being a bit softer and gentler with myself, because I think, we're not a robot. And at the end of the day, running your own business, you are the product, you are the service, you are the everything. And if you're not in top form, then it's going to have a real knock-on effect on everything else. So I think having that kinder attitude towards myself is really something I'm still learning, because I am very, Natalie, you got to do this, you got to do that. Sort of like a boot camp instructor kind of goes off in my head, I always, gosh, literally give me 10 and you can give me some 10 more. It's sort of like, enough already.
That's literally my worst nightmare, somebody shouting at me and making me do push-ups. But I do it to myself. This is the funny thing, is that sometimes what I don't like in other people, I'm doing to myself, which is silly.
Oh, absolutely. And I've really started to, as I've obviously been doing this a bit longer now, starting to recognize that, and that it's okay to slow down, because my default is fast. My default is quick. My default is get stuff done. So it feels completely strange in slowing down and sometimes creating more space and saying no. So in those, on those days, and I'll be honest with you, today is a typical day like that, because I'm just feeling completely exhausted and I'm just thinking, I actually need a nap. And that not happen today. That really might not happen today. But perhaps I could take a few other things off my list of things that I aim to do and just focus on a couple of things in more detail, and then be a little bit nicer to myself about it as well, because tomorrow is another day as well.
And sleep and good food and drink and resting or taking your mind off. I didn't really understand how important that was, because I'm not saying my parents have done all this to me by any means, but I grew up with that very strong work ethic of you keep going, you put your head down and you get on with it. And I think knowing that as a business owner as well is that sometimes you don't have that switch off time, and you do things at weekends, or I've got a young son, so I do things in the evenings, and you do, even though you don't have the schedule that is telling you to switch off, you have to be in charge of yourself sometimes.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think, like you said there, things like drinking enough, it sounds so bizarre, but drinking enough water and, even going for a walk. And to me, exercise is important. And I find it definitely makes a difference if I exercise in the morning, because it's sort of like before I start my day, because it kind of puts me in that right mindset and kind of gets me ready for the day. And even things like just a couple of minutes of mindfulness or meditation, which was also something I really had to learn, because it was completely the opposite of what I always, had this thing of, I don't have time to do that, which, I think you said to me, if you say that, you are actually the best candidate for it.
Yes.
So I think all of those little things filtered in throughout the day does make that difference and for me, the biggest thing at the moment is just that having a gentler tone with myself, that Natalie, it's okay if you can't get all of this done today. Let's focus on how are you feeling, what, and if I've got the luxury of taking some time out in that moment, then I will. But just, even just slowing down and maybe taking some deep breaths, even if I can't, completely take time out, just to kind of center me and just keep me present, I think, because I have a tendency to.
Ideas when I'm doing something completely different, or if I'm walking on Hampstead Heath, or wherever it might be, that's when my ideas come.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. For me, bizarrely, I know they say in the shower, but it definitely does happen more or less when I'm in the shower. Or, prepping food, cooking. Absolutely. It's, and I always find that I have little Post-it notes all over the place about, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That the world is our oyster, and technology and the internet is so wonderful, and it will support us in all kinds of ways. But sometimes the amount of to-dos or options can be quite overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. I picked up this tool from, it might have been Kate Taylor or could have been Lucy Sheridan, where they spoke about not having a to-do list, but a aim for list. So it just kind of shifted the words. It works for me in the sense that I would literally, and I think you speak a lot about Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule. I'm an absolute fan of hers. But she mentioned something called a brain splurge in one of her videos, and I use that nearly every day, where I literally splurge everything out that's in my brain on a piece of paper, and then I end up only doing one or two of those things, and every day some of the things are kept moving on, but other things are getting done, because I think it just takes me out of the overwhelm, thinking, okay, these are all of the things that are taking up my headspace, but realistically I've only got time to do A and B today, and that's it, and that's okay.
And sometimes when I've been up with the baby, he's not a baby, he's 2 and he shouldn't be sleeping, but sometimes he's up, with teeth and colds and whatever. But sometimes I can think about all the things that I haven't done, and actually if I focus on the stuff that I can do today, the little things that will make a difference, it suddenly just changes my mindset, and it makes things much easier to work with, and to still feel like I'm moving forward, rather than saying, well, I can't do that, or I don't feel like that. And for example, this morning I did a couple of things and I felt really tired. I didn't have a great sleep, but I did them and they paid off. And that's been quite an interesting thing, is sometimes push through. Don't just use the excuse. Sometimes I'll say, I'm too tired to do that. And actually it's fear, and I'm just a bit scared of doing it. Or, I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position by pitching and all of that stuff. So I have to catch myself of what is behind that as well. So to do a little quick fire round just to finish off, if that's all right.
Brilliant.
So what is the best thing about your job or your lifestyle?
I think just the flexibility that I have at the moment and the freedom. I'm loving it. I think, being in a classroom for over 12 years is fantastic as it was at that point. I'm absolutely loving that I get to dictate my day, more or less, a little bit more, going to different schools, working with lots of different children, and also, building the one-to-one clients that I've got, and really being able to work on material that I feel so passionate about, and seeing the positive impact that it has, and children coming to me telling me, whatever tool we did has really helped them sleep better, or they're managing their worries a little bit better, or they use their breathing before the SATs exams, or, before asking a question, or things like that. And I think that honestly, just, I can't even describe that. Love that.
Will continue, even in 15 years time, they'll be like, that teacher taught me this, and it'd be so nice. You'll get loads of emails out of the blue. If email is still around, I'm sure it will be.
If it is, you never know.
If you could do something else for the day, what would you do?
Right, so this does sound, it probably does sound a bit bizarre, but I'm absolutely obsessed. I love dogs, absolutely. And I think if I could, I've been watching, I did Paul O'Grady's For the Love of Dogs, I think, on TV.
I've started to watch a bit of it, but it makes me cry. I'm just a bit I'm banned from watching that and DIY SOS. I'm just a wreck in the corner.
Oh, you know what? I'd absolutely love to do something around animals. I think, that's also always something that I wanted to do when I was younger as well. So any sort of job that involves caring or working for animals, I'd love to do that, definitely.
Well, a friend of mine, her daughter has autism, and they've just had a pet join their family who is a support for her. So there may be some power thought stuff that can happen. So the dog is a family dog, but also protects her space and supports her, and is trained to cross the road and things like that. But my friend was telling me the funny thing is that he knows when it's family time and when he can switch off for the day, because they have to take his coat off. Bless his coat is off, and he's like, right, I can kick back, I can watch a bit of MasterChef and relax from a hard day at the office. It's lovely.
I love that. Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah.
You could combine them. So what tools or resources could you not live without?
Tools or resources? Well, I think definitely my laptop, my Mac, that's a gift. And I think resources, podcasts, I'm forever, I think I'm a big believer in always developing myself, and specifically around practicing what I preach. So, meditation or mindfulness, a couple of minutes, nothing long, because, it through any time throughout the day, definitely is like my saving grace. And, I think also making sure that I take the time to exercise for me, not just because of physical aspects, but more mentally, because I've definitely noticed a massive shift in my mood and in my perception and how I run the day if I put myself first, just for half an hour in the morning before the time, or later on even that day, just so that I'm in that right headspace. That honestly would, I have noticed a big difference versus doing it and then getting to slump and not doing it mentally. So definitely, those would be some of my things.
And finally, where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
Oh, yeah. So in 5 years' time, I'd ideally like to have certain aspects of Power Thoughts run themselves, whether it is that I've got a couple of, that I've got some people that are delivering programs for me, or whether it is that I've got programs that are being sold to schools, but definitely seeing Power Thoughts run nationwide and have its pockets. And also working on, having an online platform with a lot of the aspects and the things that I teach, so that I'm able to obviously focus more time on the family, but also work with one-to-one clients in a more supportive way. And just have parts of the business really working for itself, because ultimately I went into this because obviously I value time and wanting to start a family and travel and things like that. And I think that those are, the business, I'd like the business to be supporting me in that way.
Amazing. How exciting. Watch this space. We will speak again. Well, we'll obviously speak again before 2023, but this has gone down on record as being the case. So watch this space. So if finally people would like to come and say hi or get to know more about your work, or maybe they've got a child of their own who would really value your support, where should they go?
Right, yes. My website, www.powerthoughts.co.uk. All of the information is on there. I'm on Instagram as well. The handle is powerthoughts, N for Natalie, C for Costa. So I'm mostly on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook. Facebook has become a little bit more challenging, but if you are on Facebook, it's Power Thoughts by Natalie Costa. So those are the platforms that I'm quite visible on and where I'm at, and emailing me obviously at coaching@nataliecosta.co.uk.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved chatting, and I think you know this anyway, but what you're doing is wonderful. And as a mum as well, I think, gosh, that is such a fear of mine with my own child, that I just think, gosh, I don't want him to be worried or scared about things. Inevitably, he's a human being, and of course all of these things will. Nobody gets to skip the work. We know this, but to know that there's people out there like you who can offer that support to him should he need it in the future is just so reassuring. And I know that you're being so reassuring so many other parents out there as well. So thank you for all the brilliant work that you do.
Oh, no, thank you. I love it. Thank you. And thank you for the kind words and the support. And just this opportunity to have a bit more of a chat about it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.